Srimad Bhagavatam stories. Episode 1: The Creation of the Universe. The story of Brahma. The soul has its origin in the spiritual universe, where it manifests qualities of eternity, knowledge and bliss in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, in its desire to enjoy independently of the Lord, it is thrown into this material world and subjected to an endless cycle of births and deaths. The creation. When this material universe was submerged in the causal ocean, Lord Vishnu lay on the great serpent. Then the creation sprouted from his abdomen and formed the bud of a lotus flower. Lord Vishnu, in the form of the super-souled, entered that flower. And thus Brahma, the personality of Vedic wisdom, was begotten. Brahma could not see the world, and as he moved his eyes in the 4 directions, he got 4 heads. For a millennium, he could not understand what was the reason for his birth, and he reflected.
Who am I that am situated on the top of this lotus? Where from has it sprouted?
Trying to answer his questions, he entered the water through the channel of the lotus stem. But despite approaching Vishnu's navel, he could not find the root. At that moment, he heard, "Tapa, Tapa," which means penance. So, Vishnu, located in the heart of Brahma, acted as a spiritual teacher to help him in his understanding of being. Brahma returned to the lotus flower and concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord for 1,000 heavenly years. As a result, he was able to see the Supreme in his heart. And what was previously impossible for him, he was now able to see the gigantic white body of the serpent on which the personality of Godhead lay, and the adorning jewels of his body dispelled the darkness of all regions. The Lord raised his feet and showed them, being the reward for those who worship him with pure devotion. The splendor of the transcendental rays from the moon-like nails of his feet and hand were reminiscent of the petals of a flower. The Lord, appreciating Brahma's service, removed his afflictions by his beautiful smile. The reflection of his face, adorned with earrings, was very pleasant because it dazzled with the rays of his lips and with the beauty of his nose and his eyebrows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead also manifested before Brahma his personal abode, where the inhabitants have eyes like the lotus flower, complexion resplendent color blue like the sky. The Lord, seated on his throne, had a smiling face adorned with a lovely reddish hue, wore yellow garments and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. Lord Brahma, overcome with jubilation in his heart, his eyes filled with tears, prostrated himself before the Lord and saw that the flower garland on his chest glorified him with sweet songs full of Vedic wisdom, and he looked very beautiful. The Lord, considering that Brahma was worthy to take charge of the creation, shook hands with him and, smiling slightly, spoke to him as follows.
I am very pleased with your penances, since such acts are not different from me and constitute the potential power. Now you can ask me for what you want, and you must know that the maximum blessing is to see me through spiritual illumination.
Brahma, thus overloaded with the mode of passion, felt inclined to create, and in search of having the necessary energy, offered the following prayers.
Today, after countless years of penance, I have come to know you. The form which I see is eternally freed from material contamination, and you have shaken hands with me, just as friends do. I have been born from the lotus flower that grows from your umbilical abode, destined to create the universe by your mercy. Although I am the leader of all the planets in the universe and have undergone countless years of penance, I still offer my obeisances and pray only to serve you by creating the material world. I also pray that I may not be blinded by false pride, thinking myself the creator. Please bestow your blessing upon me with a smile.
After offering his prayers, Brahma, being very distressed from the planning of the construction of the different planetary systems, became depressed at the sight of the water of devastation and fell as if tired due to his penance activities. The Lord, being very pleased with Brahma, said,
Don't be depressed or distressed by the execution of the creation. Perform penance, meditation, and follow the principles of knowledge. Thus, you will be able to understand from within your heart. When you are absorbed in devotional service in the course of your creative activities, you will see me in yourself and in all living entities. By virtue of the Vedic knowledge and the body that you have received from me, all your plans to increase the population in the universe will be foolproof, because you have my mercy. Just follow my instructions by concentration. Fix the mind, and no pride will disturb you. Any human being who prays like you and adores me in this way will soon be blessed with the fulfillment of all his desires, for I am the Lord of all blessings.
With these words, the Lord disappeared. Following the orders of the Lord, Brahma dedicated himself to performing penance for 100 celestial years. Thus becoming strong enough and mature in practical knowledge. Thus creating 3 types of planetary systems. The highest or celestial ones, where the inhabitants are virtuous, enjoy strength, beauty, and long life. He created the intermediate planetary systems, where the inhabitants experience suffering and happiness in various circumstances. He created underground planetary systems, where sunlight does not reach and its inhabitants enjoy their senses without worrying about the next life. In addition, Brahma also created the hells, to punish the infidels who break the laws of nature through theft, slaughter of animals, and who are addicted to sinful acts. Episode 2: The Birth of a King. The story of King Parikshit. More than 5,000 years ago, there was a king named Dhritarashtra who was blind from birth, by whose ambition he provoked a war between his sons and his brother's sons, the Pandavas. He had hopes that his sons would triumph, assisted by great warriors. But before the start of the battle, he was in his palace with his secretary, who by the mercy of his spiritual master could see and hear what was happening on the field. And he said to King Dhritarashtra,
"You think that your sons will win because you have the greatest warriors? But in my opinion, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality."
After the battle. With Krishna's blessing, the Pandavas won the battle. Then, while the sons of the Pandavas were sleeping in their camps, a priest's son named Asvatthama came in at night and cowardly cut off their heads as if they were animals. When the news reached Arjuna, he set out to pursue the murderer, as Asvatthama, seeing from a great distance that Arjuna was speeding towards him, fled in his chariot in panic. But fearing death, he drew his powerful weapon called Brahmastra, which was similar to an atomic bomb, and immediately a dazzling light is spread in all directions. Then Arjuna also decided to launch his Brahmastra weapon to counteract the other. When the rays of the two Brahmastras were united, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and the firmament. But Arjuna, in order to avoid the destruction of the planets, decided to withdraw both Brahmastras. Then, full of anger, he tied Asvatthama like an animal. And to make him dead in life, he cut his hair with a sword. Krishna saves Parikshit. After the funeral rites for those killed in battle, Asvatthama launched a Brahmastra to kill the 5 Pandavas and Arjuna's grandson, who was in Uttara's womb. At which time Uttara said to Krishna,
"O Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of all mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one else in this world who can save me from the clutches of death. An incandescent iron arrow is rushing towards me. Please, don't let it burn my embryo and cause a miscarriage."
Then Krishna, as a supreme mystic, immediately wielded his disc to destroy the Brahmastra and covered Uttara's embryo to save Parikshit, the last descendant of the Pandava. When Parikshit's child was suffering in his mother's womb due to the scorching heat of the Brahmastra, he could see the Supreme Lord coming towards him to save him. The Lord was only the size of a thumb, but he was completely transcendental. He had a beautiful, blackish, and infallible body, dressed in yellow clothes and a fiery golden helmet, adorned with 4 hands, earrings of molten gold, and angry eyes. He moved from side to side with his club, constantly spinning around him to dissipate the Brahmastra's radiation. The boy watched him and wanted to know who it was, but suddenly the Lord disappeared. The birth of a king. Parikshit's birth was at an auspicious hour, when the signs of the zodiac were well positioned. King Yudhishthira organized a great fire ceremony for the birth of the child and asked the priests,
"Do you think he will be as holy a king, as pious in his own name, and as famous and glorified for his achievements as the others from this great royal family?"
The all-powerful and all-pervading Lord, in order to please you, saved this immaculate child. Thus, he will be well known in the world as Parikshit, the examiner, because he will come to examine all human beings in his search for that personality which he saw before he was born. In this way, he will come to contemplate the Lord constantly. When this child grows up, he will be as irresistible as fire, as insurmountable as the ocean, and as strong as a lion, and as worthy of refuge as the Himalayan mountains. He will be as even-tempered as Brahma, as bountiful as Shiva, and he will be everyone's shelter, just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He will be as faithfully devoted as King Prahlad, and as faithful to his promise as Sri Ramachandra. After hearing about his death from being bitten by a winged snake, he will give up all material attachments and surrender to the personality of Godhead.
World conquest. In due course of time, Parikshit was crowned king of the whole world under the instructions of learned priests. Being in his capital, he saw that the religious principles were not being followed within his territory. So King Parikshit, full of vigor, started a military campaign to conquer all the regions of the planet. Wherever he went, various reciters praised the qualities of their ancestors, saying,
For the Pandavas, Lord Krishna was the supreme lord for them, the spiritual master, the venerable deity, the guide, the charioteer, the friend, the servant, messenger, and everything they could conceive. And the Lord also corresponded in this way with the sentiments of your ancestors.
King Parikshit, in his capacity as a pure devotee of the Lord, was able to appreciate the transcendental correspondence that the Lord had with the sentiments of his devotees. Thus, he was flooded with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Episode 3: Prepared to Die. The story of King Parikshit. The personality of the earth, in the form of a cow, was crying and full of lamentations. At that moment, the personality of the religious principles arrived in the form of a bull, supported on one leg, and asked the cow,
Madam, why do you find yourself blackened and suffering? Is it because the meat-eaters are exploding you? Or is it because monks have sought refuge in corrupt families? Mother Earth, please inform me, what are the causes of your problems?
Mother Earth replied,
Krishna has finished his pastimes on this earth, and in his absence, the personality of sin has spread his influence. Who then can tolerate the torment of being separated from that supreme personality of Godhead, who has protected us from so many anguishes?
King Parikshit punishes the personality of sin. During his journey, the whole King Parikshit arrived on the banks of the river and saw that a low-class man, dressed as a king, hit the bull and the cow with a club. Before such a macabre scene, King Parikshit, with a voice so strong like thunder, said,
Who are you? With that outfit, you pretend to be king, but you dare to hit an innocent cow? For that, you deserve to die.
Then King Parikshit asked the bull,
Who are you? Some demigod? Who mutilated your 3 legs? Who dares threaten my reputation? You are as white as a lotus flower. Never before in this land has anyone shed tears because of a king's negligence. Therefore, as long as I live, I will crush all envious men.
The bull knew very well that the personality of sin was the cause of the sufferings. However, he decided not to accuse him, since, as a devotee of the Lord, he understood that everything happened with the permission of Krishna. King Parikshit realized that the bull was the personality of religion, and was pleased, saying,
Your 4 legs symbolize 4 principles: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But now, only 1 leg remains, which represents truthfulness.
King Parikshit wielded his sharp sword to kill the personality of sin, which was the cause of all irreligion. At that precise moment, the personality of sin abandoned his king's costume and prostrated himself. Before this surrender, King Parikshit smiled compassionately and said,
Very well. I shall spare your life, but henceforth you may neither dress as a king nor stand where sacred principles are honored.
And the personality of sin, trembling with fear, replied,
Please, allow me to reside in the places where there is gambling, drinking, prostitution, and slaughter of animals, and also where there is gold. For wherever gold is found, all principles are broken.
King Parikshit accepted his request and then reinstated the bull's legs, which are austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. For the benefit of the common people, he used the gold reserves to be used in the stabilization of the kingdom. Thus, it's clear that gold, under the guidance of the right person, can restore the principles of religion. The king is sentenced to death. One day, King Parikshit was hunting in the forest, and he began to feel very thirsty. So he approached a hut to ask a monk for water. This incident was very rare, since it was not possible for such a strong king to be thirsty in such way, and asked a monk for water. So it is understood that this was only the work of the Supreme Personality of God, for the sacred book of Srimad Bhagavatam to manifest. The king entered the hut, found a monk absorbed in meditation, and asked him for a little water. And seeing that he did not pay attention to him, he said,
Since you welcomed me with coldness, I shall repay you with the cold corpse of a snake as my answer.
The news spread quickly until it reached the ears of the monk's son. This child was very powerful. He had followed the regulatory principles as he should, and he was furious when he heard the act of the king and said,
What has that warrior believed about himself to insult my father like that? What right does a guard dog have to enter the house and eat from the master's plate?
Addressing his playmates, he said,
Witness my power. I curse the king so that on the 7th day from today, he dies beaten by a snake.
Saying this, the boy ran to tell his father what he had done and began to cry. His father said to him,
What a sinful act you have committed, given such a severe punishment for such a minor offense. For a king as qualified as King Parikshit, his minor mistakes should not be held against him.
Meanwhile, the king was on his way to his castle and began to think about what had happened.
Why didn't the monk care about me? Was it because he chose to meditate, refusing to give water to a lowly warrior like me? Or was he genuinely meditating and simply didn't hear? Regardless, what I did was not right, and I wish for the monk's anger to fall on me now. not on my family members.
When the king arrived at his palace, he received the news from the monk, who said,
My son has cursed you to die from a snake bite within 7 days.
The king thought,
I do not perceive this curse as something negative, but rather as a blessing from the Supreme Lord, prompting me to renounce my material possessions and family, so that I may fully immerse myself in devotional service.
Immediately the king left his eldest son as governor, got rid of all his royal garments, and went to the river bank to fast until the day of his death. All the great intelligences and thinkers realized that something great was going to happen where King Parikshit was, and with the pretext of making a pilgrimage, they arrived at the place, because for advanced souls it isn't necessary to visit sacred places to purify themselves. On the contrary, as they feel the presence of God in their hearts, they purify the places of pilgrimage. The king offered obeisances to the sages and said,
I make this gesture in the hope that you will forgive me if I have committed any offense in the past. And I also thank you for coming to be with me today, for leaving this world in the presence of such exalted souls guarantees me to return to the spiritual universe. But if that is not possible, and I am reborn in this material world, I request to be born as a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and well-wisher of all living entities.
The sages replied,
It is not at all surprising that you have left your throne to have the eternal company of the Personality of Godhead, and we will wait until the time of your return to the Supreme Planet.
What is the duty of every human being, and especially of the one who is about to die?
At that moment, there was a confusion in the assembly, because those present were of different philosophical lines. And suddenly, Sukadeva Goswami arrived dressed as if others had neglected him. But the sages of the assembly, seeing his face, which is a reflection of the soul, realized that he had a great personality. And seeing his unusual bodily features, they confirmed his greatness and stood up. Sukadeva Goswami took his exalted seat in the midst of everyone, just as the moon is surrounded by stars. And King Parikshit, with folded hands, said,
It is by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, that you have come today. Therefore, I beg you to teach me the path of perfection for all people, especially for one who is about to die.
Sukadeva Goswami replied,
Hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord Krishna and the constant chanting of the holy names of the Lord, following in the footsteps of the great authorities, is the way to success. And it is as effective for those free of desires and for those who are desirous of all material enjoyment.
The death of the king. King Parikshit, after listening to the holy teachings for 7 days, spoke as follows.
I have fulfilled life's purpose by hearing from you about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the beginningless and endless one. Now, freed from fear of death, I stand prepared to return to God's eternal kingdom.
The king bid farewell to Sukadeva Goswami and went to sit by the river to meditate on the supreme absolute truth. Suddenly, a snake with wings appeared and bit the king. The body of the great saint was reduced to ashes by the fire of the poison. Although the people lamented at first, the great sages realized that the great soul was going back to Godhead and were filled with happiness. Episode 4: The Ripe Fruit of Knowledge. The story of Vyasadeva and Sukadeva Goswami. One day, a sage named Vyasadeva sat on the banks of the Sarasvati river, and in full concentration, he realized that the world would change. People would become less kind, their lifespan would shorten, and so would their memory span. Therefore, he began to reflect.
How can I provide benefits to people of all backgrounds and walks of life?
With that objective, the only source of knowledge that existed, he divided it into several sections, which dealt with religiosity, economic growth, the enjoyment of the senses, and liberation. But with the intention of reaching the less intelligent, he compiled a great narrative called the Mahabharata, which in turn includes the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all knowledge. Despite of all his work, Vyasadeva was not satisfied. He thought,
under strict disciplinary vows and without pretense, I performed my spiritual activities. However, I feel incomplete. Could it be because I did not specifically mention devotional service to the Lord?
At that precise moment, Narada Muni appeared and said,
My dear Vyasa, you have done a great work. It is very complete, but you have not emphasized devotional service to the Lord, which is the only thing that can sanctify the entire atmosphere of the universe and cause a spiritual revolution in the impious lives of this misguided world civilization. Continue with your vows, and I request you to vividly describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. In my personal experience, every human being who is attached to sense enjoyment can be freed from that desire by reciting the activities of the Supreme Lord.
With these words, Narada Muni left Vyasadeva and, vibrating his instrument called Veena, he continued his journey through the universe. Following the instructions of the sage, Vyasadeva was able to write the holy book of Srimad Bhagavatam. Birth of Sukadeva Goswami. Vyasadeva was married and was expecting his wife to give birth to a child. However, days, weeks, and months passed, but the child refused to be born for 16 years. In fact, that child was transcendentally powerful, always absorbed in spiritual knowledge. One day, Vyasadeva decided to transmit Srimad Bhagavatam to his son, to arouse in him attachment to the transcendental activities of the Lord, and said,
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
His son, after hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, realized that he had wasted so much time, as the transcendental bliss he was experiencing with the personal feature of the Supreme Lord was very great. So he decided to take birth and ran away. Vyasadeva ran after his son. And on the way, he met several maidens who were bathing naked. They immediately covered their bodies with clothes, and Vyasadeva asked them,
Why weren't you dressed when my son passed by?
And the maidens replied,
When we saw the young man, his face was like that of an innocent child, and as such, he sees no difference between man and woman. However, you are an older man and you are married.
When Sukadeva Goswami left his father's house, he began to wander like a madman, deaf and dumb. Therefore, it was very difficult for the citizens to recognize his exalted position. Everyone laughed and jeered when they saw him. Therefore, a sage is not recognized by sight, but by hearing. That young man was a liberated soul, and by virtue of this, he was always alert, watching not to be caught by the temptations of the world. He used to stay at the door of a married person's house long enough for a cow to be milked and receive a little milk as alms. This he did to sanctify the residence with his auspicious presence. And so it was that Sukadeva Goswami, traveling the world, came before King Parikshit to present the knowledge he had learned. The Srimad Bhagavatam. Episode 5. The Past of a Sage. The story of Narada Muni. Narada Muni travels throughout the universe liberating living entities, and is one of the most mentioned characters in Srimad Bhagavatam as an exalted devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. However, it was not always like that, as he had a past of curses and poverty in previous lives. The curse of the sages. Long ago, Narada Muni was a heavenly inhabitant who had a very beautiful face with perfect bodily features, was the most attractive man in his city, and was liked by all the women, always with desires full of enjoyment. One day, he was invited by the sages to participate in a celebration. So he joined the festival and began to sing the glories of the demigods surrounded by lustful women. But such chanting was inappropriate because he did not seek to praise the Supreme Lord. This was not supported by the members of the assembly, and they imposed the following curse on him.
Due to having committed an offense in this ceremony, you will become a poor man without the slightest trace of beauty.
In this way, he was stripped of all kinds of material opulence as a heavenly inhabitant. The blessing of the sages. Narada Muni said,
In my next life, I was my mother's only son. She was not only a simple woman, but also a servant. Since I was her only child, she had no other means of protection, and she bound me with the bond of affection. During the rainy season, my mother was engaged in the service of some sages who were following the principles of knowledge, and I too was engaged in their devotional service. Although those sages were impartial by nature, they blessed me with their causeless mercy. With their permission, I ate the remnants of their food. By doing so, all my sins were eradicated. My heart was purified, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalists became attractive to me. In the midst of that association, my taste for hearing the attractive activities of Lord Krishna increased. As that taste developed, devotional service began to pour out of me, and the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance dissolved. Even though I was only 5 years old, I had great faith in them in my heart, and with mind and body, I strictly followed the sages. After some time, the wise man departed, and I was left in the care of my mother. One night, my poor mother went out to milk a cow, and by the supreme will, was bitten on the leg by a snake. I took that as a special mercy of the Lord, who always desires his devotees to be blessed. Thinking in this way, I left for the north. I passed through hills and mountains rich with mineral deposits, and through tracts of land suited for celestial beings. Then I journeyed through many deep, dark, and terrifying forests. Traveling in this way, I became tired and took a bath in a river pond. Then under the shade of a banyan tree, I followed the teachings of the sages, and using my intelligence, began to meditate on the super soul. The personality of Godhead. Sri Krishna appeared in the lotus of my heart. At that time, overwhelmed with feelings of bliss, I could not distinguish between myself and God. Suddenly, I lost sight of the Lord and felt disturbed. Despite my efforts to see him again, I could not. Seeing my sincere efforts in that lonely place, the personality of Godhead spoke to me, gravely and sweetly, just to ease my distress. The Lord said,
I am sorry that in this life you can no longer see me. You have seen my form only once, and that was only to increase your desire to attain me. The more you yearn to reach me, the more you will become free from all material desires. By my mercy, your memory will remain both at the time of creation and at the time of annihilation.
Saying that, the Supreme Authority stopped speaking. Feeling a deep sense of gratitude, I bowed my head unto him. Thus, by chanting the holy name of the Lord and his transcendental pastimes, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humbled, and envious of no one. In due time, I met death, and just as lightning flashed, I was bestowed with a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead. Then, when Brahma awoke to create the universe once more, I too manifested from the transcendental body of the Lord.
Episode 6. The result of the penances. The story of Kardhama Muni. Lord Brahma, with intention of populating the universe, had many sons to help him in his purpose. Among them was Kardhama Muni, who succeeded in having the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son. The fruit of devotional service. Kardhama Muni underwent 10,000 years of austerities, during which time he worshipped the personality of Godhead in a trance by devotional service and thus attained favor from him. The Supreme Lord, in his eternal form, appeared before him as effulgent as the sun, clad in immaculate yellow silks and garlanded with white lotuses, adorned with a crown and earrings, and the dark waves of his silk head adorned his lotus face. On his chest was a golden mark, and the famous Kaustuba gem hung from his neck. He looked around him with a happy and smiling attitude. He felt so much compassion for his devotee that he shed tears of pleasure that formed the Bindu Sarovara lake. Kardhama Muni, being very satisfied to see his transcendental desire fulfilled, offered his obeisances to the Lord's feet, and being full of love for God, offered the following prayers.
My eyesight has reached supreme perfection by seeing you. Your lotus feet are the safe ship that allows us to traverse the ocean of mundane nations. Only those who lack intelligence worship you for sensory pleasures. Although I know that I should not ask for anything material, I desire to marry a woman with a character similar to mine, who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life. Therefore, I take shelter in your lotus feet, which are like a desire tree.
After receiving the prayers of praise, Lord Vishnu, looking at the sage with a smile full of affection, replied with words as sweet as nectar.
My dear sage, those who serve me by adoring me with devotion and who have given me everything will never be disappointed. King Swayambhuva Manu, the emperor of the entire world, will come the day after tomorrow with the intention of giving you his daughter as a wife. She possesses all good qualities and is of marriageable age. With her, you will have 9 daughters, and furthermore, I will also manifest myself through your wife to be your son.
In this way, it becomes clear that if we depend on the choice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the opulence of the blessings received will be greater than we have desired. Just as the Lord had predicted, Swayambhuva Manu arrived with his daughter, called Devahuti. The king approached and saw that the sage had a very bright body and a young face, despite the fact that he had undergone many years of penance. It was like an unpolished gemstone. After the king had offered obeisances, he said to the sage,
I present to you my daughter, Devahuti. She is the sister of 2 great heroes and is seeking a worthy husband. Some time ago, Narada Muni came to my palace and spoke highly of you, praising your beauty, erudition, and noble qualities. From that moment, she set her heart on you. In every way, Devahuti is an ideal match to be your wife. Do not reject this opportunity, for it is unwise to refuse what comes of its own accord. I have also heard that you seek to marry, so I ask you to accept my daughter's hand.
The sage replied,
Considering that you want it, she wants it, and she has not yet given her word to anyone, then we can celebrate our marriage. Who would not accept your daughter as a wife? She's so beautiful that only the brilliance of her body surpasses the beauty of her ornaments.
After giving his daughter to the sage, the king, with a troubled mind and a sad heart, embraced his affectionate daughter and began to cry incessantly. Then, with the sage's permission, the king set out for his capital. The powers of a yogi. After getting married, Devahuti served her husband with great respect, love, and sweet words. Although she came from a family of kings, she was never proud or dismissive of country life. She had given herself for a long time to the service of her husband in the house, but she also had to do certain austerities for which her beauty had become dim, and she looked thinner, so her husband, full of compassion, told her,
For your great devotion and excellent loving service, I am very pleased. You have even neglected your own body to use it for my benefit. For that reason, I am going to offer you all the blessings that the Lord gave me by virtue of my austerities and religious life.
Devahuti, very satisfied, said,
I've been serving you for a long time, but once you promised me that we would have children, and for a chaste woman who has a glorious husband, children are a great blessing.
Kardhama Muni, seeking to please his dear wife, used his yogic power and immediately produced an aerial palace that could travel according to his will. It was a wonderful structure, decorated with all kinds of jewels, adorned with pillars of precious stones, and could provide anything that was desired. The palace had a charming appearance with beds, sofas, fans, and seats, all arranged separately on 7 floors and with riches of all kinds, which tended to increase with the passage of time. The castle had playgrounds, restrooms, bedrooms, and inner and outer courtyards designed for comfort. The sage himself was astonished at all this. Devahuti was looking at the gigantic and opulent palace with a discontented heart. Then Kardhama Muni told her,
You seem very frightened. First, bathe in the Vindu Sarovara lake that can grant the human being all his wishes, and then board this plane.
Devahuti, immersing herself in the lake, saw 1,000 maidens in the flower of their youth, ready to attend to her. They bathed her with oils and gave her a new dress, fine and immaculate. Then she beheld her own image in the mirror and thought of her great husband. Then she instantly appeared where he was. Surrounded by thousands of servants, they spent many years traveling the universe in that opulent palace. Is there anything difficult for resolute men who have taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to achieve? His feet are the source of holy rivers like the Ganges, which puts an end to the dangers of worldly life. The birth of Lord Kapiladeva. As time went by, Devahuti gave birth to 9 daughters. Then Kardhama Muni said,
Since you already have children, the time has come for me to renounce family life and embrace the rules of a monk.
But Devahuti was a little nervous and replied,
My lord, you have kept all the promises you made to me, but you must also free me from fear. Who else will give me protection if you leave the house?
Don't worry. The Lord will give you protection. You should engage in sacrifice, charity, and penance. Then the Supreme Lord Himself will be born in your womb. Then the Lord will break the knot of material attachment in your heart.
Eventually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead descended as the son of Devahuti and was named Kapiladeva. Then Kardhama Muni approached the Lord and said,
Thank you very much for coming down as my son, just to keep your word and spread the process of true knowledge. Now I have performed my duty to my father, which was to have good children. I have fulfilled my family duties, and all my wishes are fulfilled. Please, allow me to give up family life and go through the world as a wandering man, always thinking of you inside my heart.
Kapiladeva said,
Whatever I say, whether directly or through the scriptures, is authoritative in every respect for the people of the world. Since I previously told you that I would become your son, I have now descended to fulfill that truth. With my approval, you may depart, offering all your activities to me. Through your intellect, you will always see me in your own heart, thus attaining the state of eternal life. This sublime knowledge I will also impart to my mother Devahudi, so that she too may attain self-realization and be freed from fear.
Then Kapiladeva instructed his mother in the science of devotional service. When he finished, the Lord asked permission to retire and left. His mother returned to her palace, and always meditating on her son as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all her material desires disappeared, and she easily attained the Lord. The material elements of her body became water and now form the current of a river, the most sacred of all. Episode 7: Purifying the Heart. The story of King Dhruva. A long time ago, there was a king who had 2 wives and a son with each one. One day he was sitting on his throne and had one of his sons on his lap. Then his other son, called Dhruva, also wanted to sit next to his brother, but he couldn't, and the king didn't do his best to help him either, so that Dhruva's stepmother said with great pride,
My dear child, it's true that you are also the king's son, but since you are not born from my womb, you have no right to sit on the throne or on your father's lap. But if you want that so badly, then you will have to worship the Supreme Lord, perform austerities, die, and then be reborn, but this time in my womb.
Dhruva, struck by his stepmother's harsh words and seeing that his father remained silent without protest, immediately left the palace and went to see his mother. She took him in her arms, and upon hearing what happened, he sank into deep pain, and full of tears on his lotus face, she said,
My dear son, never wish anything bad on others. Anyone who causes pain to others must also suffer it in his person. I am already old, and your father considers me worse than a servant. It's true that you were born from the womb on an unhappy woman. My dear child, although your stepmother's words were cruel, what she said is the truth. Therefore, if you want to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother, you should engage in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone can ease your distress.
The boy determinedly and intelligently left the kingdom of his father with the intention of undertaking devotional service. The news reached Narada Muni, who, understanding Dhruva's activities, was stunned and thought,
How wonderful are men from warrior families! They cannot bear even the slightest insult to their honor.
Then he turned to Dhruva and said,
My dear boy, you're just a child attached to games. Why do you let a few words against your honor affect you so much? That kind of dissatisfaction is simply another form of illusory energy. In my opinion, devotional service is not for ordinary men, for it is so difficult to please the Lord that even great yogis often fail. Forget your efforts. You will not succeed. It is better that you return home, and when you are older, you may try again. Besides, to truly undertake devotional service, a true devotee must remain satisfied in both happiness and distress.
Dhruva replied,
Thank you very much for your teachings, but I am covered in ignorance, and that kind of philosophy does not touch my heart, for my stepmother has broken it with her cruel words. Oh, wise scholar, I want to occupy a position more glorious than any other ever achieved by anyone in the universe. I would beg you to please advise me of an honest path that I could follow to reach my life's goal.
Narada Muni said,
The instruction you received from your mother is proper. You should fully absorb yourself in the devotional service of the Lord. Go to the bank of the Yamuna River and meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead by chanting the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. In this way, you will soon be able to see the perfect human beings flying through the sky. Follow the process of devotional service with earnestness and sincerity, for every devotee who aspires to economic growth and sense gratification will attain these results by following these steps.
Narada Muni paid a visit to the palace, and when he arrived, he saw that the king was sad, heartbroken, and withered. So Narada Muni asked,
What is the matter? Are you facing difficulties in governing your kingdom?
The king replied,
Because I was dominated by a woman, I became so hard-hearted that I sent my 5-year-old son into exile, despite his being a great soul and a great devotee. What situation might he be in now? Perhaps he is stranded in the forest and has been attacked by hungry wolves.
Narada Muni said,
My dear king, although you may not know it, your son's fame is already well known throughout the world. One who engages in devotional service anywhere in the universe is never helpless. Your son is highly competent. He will return soon, and thanks to him, your fame will also spread throughout the world.
The blessing of the Supreme Lord. Dhruva, following the orders of his spiritual master, Narada Muni, within 6 months was able to see the Supreme Lord in his heart. Which was as bright as lightning. Suddenly, that form disappeared. And being disturbed, he opened his eyes and could see before him the Supreme Personality. Feeling spiritual ecstasy, he looked at him intensely. The boy wanted to offer prayers, but because he was only 5 years old, he did not have enough knowledge. So the Lord, to fulfill his wish, touched his forehead with his conch shell. To bestow transcendental intelligence. And Dhruva said,
Oh, unlimited Lord, please bless me to always have the association of great devotees. For just as the waves of a river flow constantly, they are always engaged in your transcendental service. I am sure that the process of devotional service will enable me to cross the ocean of material existence, and it will be very easy for me, for I am going crazy to hear about your transcendental qualities and pastimes, which exist eternally.
I know the reason why you underwent severe austerities, and I know the desire in your heart. Although it is very ambitious and difficult to fulfill, I will show you my favor by making it come true. You will first occupy your father's throne after he retires, and you will never grow old. Then, you will reign over the planet called the North Star, which continues to exist even after the universal dissolution. After enjoying the blessings of material happiness in this life, you can remember me at the time of death, and you will reach my supreme abode. At some future date, your stepbrother will be killed in the woods, and your stepmother will go looking for him, but she will die in the flames of a fire.
At first, Dhruva approached the Lord to ask for material opulence. But after attaining spiritual enlightenment, he became ashamed, and having his heart purified, he asked the Lord to have the association of devotees to cross the ocean of material existence. However, the personality of Godhead blessed him to perform pure devotional service in the midst of all material opulence. Back to the palace. When the king heard that his son was coming back, it was as if he had come back to life. Moved by this news, he immediately left accompanied by his 2 wives, ministers, sages, and military force. Seeing Dhruva at the height of a grove, the king, who was carried away with love and affection, stepped forward to embrace his long-lost son. The king, with heavy breathing, embraced him in his arms and saw his wish fulfilled. But his son was not the same as before. Due to spiritual advancement, he was completely sanctified, because he had been touched by the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of God. Dhruva, when he was about to bow to his stepmother, she picked him up and holding him in her arms, said,
"My dear child, may you live long."
When Dhruva's mother embraced the tender body of her son, who was dearer to her than her own life, she forgot all material sorrows. Just as water naturally flows downward, the living entities honor a person who has transcendental qualities because of his friendly relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The coronation. Dhruva lived with his father, who took special care of him and allowed him to live like the demigods in their palaces and the higher planetary system. The surrounding walls were made of marble, with many reliefs made of sapphire and precious stones, depicting beautiful women with sparkling jeweled lamps in their hands. When the king, after due consideration, saw that his son was of suitable maturity to take charge of the kingdom, he crowned Dhruva emperor of the planet Earth. Episode 8: Self-Realization. The story of King Dhruva. Dhruva was a saintly king, for despite his dedication in politics and government administration, he maintained a great desire for self-realization. One day, his brother went hunting, but a powerful demon killed him. When his stepmother found out about him, she went looking for him. But a forest fire ended his life. King Dhruva, overwhelmed with anger and lamentation, mounted his chariot and set out to conquer the city of demons. Arriving, he blew his conch shell, the sound of which resounded throughout the sky and in all directions. The very powerful heroes of the demons came out of the city, attacked with their weapons, and despite knowing that their defeat was certain, they praised the brave action of King Dhruva. Relentlessly shooting arrows, the king shattered all enemy weapons. The heads of the demons fell to pieces from the king's arrows, and those who survived began to return to the city. But suddenly, the king saw that the whole sky was covered with thick clouds. Threatening thunder sounded, and it began to rain blood, mucus, pus, excrement, urine, and marrow, and all kinds of weapons fell. Faced with such an attack, the king took the arrow made by the Supreme Lord, and as soon as he placed it on his bow, the illusion that the demons had created immediately vanished. In turn, arrows with golden shafts and feathers like wings of a swan were shot out, managing to kill many demons, who were immediately transferred to the upper planetary system, which is only reached by qualified celibate monks. The grandfather of King Dhruva, named Swayambhuva Manu, seeing such a situation and full of compassion, approached the king and said,
"Please stop. You are overdoing it by killing demons who are not to blame. Anger is the path to a hellish life and is unbefitting of our family. You are a great devotee. Your life is meant to serve as an example of good behavior. Therefore, I am surprised. Why are you engaging in such an abominable act? You have already shown great affection for your brother. But if you are truly a pure servant of the Lord, you must remember that every living entity is also his residence, and unjustified killing is not permitted. If you return to your natural position and offer service to the Almighty Lord, you will soon forget the illusory concepts of I and mine. The demons you have killed belong to the family of the demigod Kuvera. And because of this, you have agitated his mind. Now, you must appease him with prayers and kind words. I wish you all good fortune. Please follow my instructions."
King Dhruva, with his anger already calm, stopped killing demons. Then the demigod Kuvera, hearing the news, appeared before him and said,
I am very glad that you have followed your grandfather's instructions. In fact, you have not even killed the demons, and they have not killed your brother, because ultimately the cause of everything is the Supreme Lord. We have heard that you constantly engage in transcendental loving service. Therefore, you are worthy of all our blessings. Do not hesitate to ask me for what you desire most.
Lord Kuvera, the treasurer of demigods, whose only business is to stock immense fortunes, offered King Dhruva all the riches he could wish for. However, the king, who was intelligent and thoughtful, replied,
All I ask is to possess unshakable faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the power to always remember Him, so that I can cross the ocean of nations with great ease.
The king's liberation. King Dhruva, during his rule, performed many fire ceremonies and gave all his wealth to charity to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As king, he was kind to the poor and innocent, protected religious principles, so he was considered the direct father of all citizens. In due time, he put his son in charge of the royal throne and retired to the Badarikasran forest in the Himalayas. There, his senses were purified, and he concentrated his mind on the form of the Lord. Being in trance of devotional service, the king completely forgot his physical existence and immediately became free from material bondage. Suddenly, he saw that a beautiful plane descended from the sky, and that there were two beautiful young men. They had 4 arms, their body luster with blackish, and they approached him with happy and smiling faces, and said,
We have been entrusted with a specific mission to take you to the spirit world, and the Supreme Lord has sent this exceptional aircraft because you are worthy of it. It is very difficult to reach the spiritual planet, but you, with your austerity, have achieved it. Please come with us and live there forever.
King Dhruva offered obeisances to the servants of the Lord and to their plane. Meanwhile, his body became spiritual, as bright, as luminous as molten gold. He then sat in the transcendental airplane, and when he was about to take off, he thought,
How can I go to the kingdom of God alone, leaving my poor mother here?
But the Lord's servants said,
Oh, don't worry. Your mother is coming on another plane to the same destination.
The king rose above the 7 planetary systems of the great sages, and beyond that, he attained the transcendental abode of eternal life, where the personality of Godhead resides, which cannot be attained by those who are not merciful to other living entities. The great sage Narada Muni was very pleased to see the glories of his disciple and said,
King Dhruva, through the sole influence of his spiritual advancement and the power of his austerity, enabled his mother, who was devoted to her husband, to attain a glorious position in the spiritual realm, a place that could not be reached by so-called scholars.
The sages said,
Whoever listens to this narration of King Dhruva's life will have the same glorious qualities as him. Everyone who desires greatness, value, or influence has here the process to obtain them, and thoughtful men who desire worship find here the proper means. This narration constitutes a sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality and is unique in this world.
Episode 9, A Sinner's Son. The story of King Anga. One of King Dhruva's descendants was Anga, who was very noble, lofty in character, saintly, and much loved by wise men. However, he had a wicked son, for whose sake he left the kingdom, having lost all interest in it. Forcing fate. One day, the priests invited the demigods to an important ceremony. But despite all their efforts, none of them showed up. So they said to King Anga,
The priests here are experts. They are singing the hymns properly, and we know that you have gathered with great faith and care all the necessary items for the ceremony. However, the demigods are not accepting it.
King Anga, feeling very sorry, asked,
Please tell me what offense I have committed.
O King, in this life, we see that you have not fallen into sinful acts, not even in thought. But we see that in your past life, you did commit such acts, and for that reason, you do not have a male child. However, if you pray now to the Supreme Lord, asking for a son and perform the ceremony for that purpose, the Supreme Personality of Godhead will fulfill your wish.
Then, at the request of the king, the priests offered oblations to the Supreme Lord. And immediately a man dressed in white with a necklace and a golden pot filled with rice pudding appeared on the fire altar. And the king took the pot in his hands, and after smelling the preparation, he offered a portion to his wife. In this way, the king was able to have a son. My best friend, a sinful son. The queen's father was death personified. So the son of the glorious King Anga turned out to be a demon. The cruel boy used to go to the forest and on a whim arm his bow with arrows and kill the innocent deer. The people, as soon as they saw him approach, shouted. Then, when he played with children his own age, he would kill them without showing them the slightest mercy, as if they were slaughter animals. King Anga, seeing the cruel and ruthless behavior of his son Vena, imposed punishments to correct him, but he could not do it. All this made him feel extremely unhappy. The king reflected.
Certainly, those who cannot have children may have worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a previous life for that blessing. This spares them the misfortune of having a sinful son, which can tarnish a person's reputation, lead to quarrels, and cause endless anxiety. On second thought, having a bad son could be preferable to having a good one. A good son may bind us to family life, while a bad son can make the home so unbearable that an intelligent person would withdraw from it easily. Actually, my sinful son is my best friend.
King Anga spent several sleepless nights, and when he came to feel absolute indifference to family life, he abandoned his wife and the attraction he felt for the great opulences of his kingdom. and without anyone seeing him, he silently left for the forest. When it was learned that the king had left home, everyone was very sorry. The demon King Vena. With the absence of the king, all the thieves came out to rob the citizens. All the sages said,
"A kingdom without a king makes all the people as undisciplined as animals. For that reason, we must crown the king's son, named Bena, as the Lord of the world."
When Vena took the throne, he became all-powerful and very proud. He rode a chariot, and like an out-of-control elephant, he began to travel throughout the kingdom, shaking heaven and earth wherever he went, going so far as to prohibit all kinds of religious rituals and fire ceremonies. At that time, all the great sages came together and said to each other,
We are caught in the middle of two dangers. On the one hand, an irresponsible king, and on the other, thieves and rogues. We chose Bena as the king of the state to provide protection for the citizens, but he has now become their enemy. Despite all these irregularities, we must try to calm him down and correct him. But if King does not accept our advice, then we will use our power to burn him to ashes.
Approaching the king, the wise men, concealing their anger, said,
Dear King, we have come to offer you some valuable advice. Please do not neglect the spiritual well-being of your subjects. Engage your people in religious ceremonies for their elevation. By doing so, the demigods will grant you the results you desire. However, if you refuse, rest assured that you may fall from your opulent position as king.
All of you are completely inexperienced. You do not know what religion is. In reality, you leave your true husband, who maintains you, and are looking for some lover to adore. The king is actually the supreme personality of Godhead. All the demigods are parts and parcels of the king's body. For this reason, be clever and offer me all kinds of sacrifices and articles of worship.
The sages, irritated by the king's words, shouted,
Kill him! He's the most horrible and sinful person who dared to insult the Supreme Personality of Godhead!
The birth of King Prithu. Due to the death of the king, the town passed into the hands of thieves and criminals who stripped people of their wealth. Faced with such a disastrous situation, the sages went to the dead body of King Vena and shook his thighs with great force. As a result, a kind of dwarf was born, with black skin and large jaws. He immediately assumed all the results of the king's sinful activities. Then the sages waved the arms of the body, and as a result, a heavenly couple appeared. And the sages said,
The male will be named Prithu, a plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord's power, and his fame will spread throughout the world. The female will be named Archie, a plenary expansion of the goddess of fortune, whose beauty and good qualities will enhance the beauty of the adornments she wears.
Episode 10. The King of Planet Earth. The story of King Prithu. The learned priests organized the coronation of great King Prithu, who, dressed in exquisite clothes and ornaments, received gifts from various personalities. Lord Brahma presented him with a protective garment made of spiritual knowledge. Saraswati, the wife of Brahma, gave him a transcendental necklace. Lord Vishnu presented him with a Sudarshan disc. And Lord Vishnu's wife, the goddess of fortune, gave him everlasting opulences. The professional reciters said,
King Prithu will be as powerful as the sun god, whose light reaches everyone without distinction. The king will share his mercy equally among all, just as the sun god evaporates water for 8 months and returns it abundantly in the rainy season. The king will tax the citizens and return that money in times of need.
King Prithu, after listening to the reciters, said,
My dear devotees, I am not currently known for any personal accomplishments, for I have done nothing worthy of praise. To tell someone you could have been a great scholar or a great personality if only you have been educated is nothing more than hollow flattery.
The king threatens Mother Earth. While great sages seated King Prithu on the throne and proclaimed him protector of the citizens, there was a shortage of grain on earth. His subjects appeared before the king and said,
We are drying up due to the fire of hunger that burns in our stomachs. Please, organize the necessary distribution of grain. Otherwise, we will soon die from lack of food.
After listening to the lamentation of the citizens, King Prithu pondered the problem to find the cause and realized that it was not the people's fault, for they were not lazy in performing their duties. If not their fault, then it was the fault of the earth. Then the king drew his bow and pointed his arrow at the earth, and the earth was very afraid. Began to tremble. She fled, taking the form of a cow. But the king was filled with anger, and putting an arrow in his bow, he pursued Earth in the form of a cow wherever she fled. Finally, full of fear and with a sorrowful heart, the Earth turned to the king and said,
You are the protector of all living entities, and you cannot kill anyone who has not committed sinful activities. And you should never lay hands on a woman, even if she does something wrong.
You have disobeyed my orders. You have taken your share in the sacred ceremonies we perform, yet you have not produced enough grain in return. Though you eat green grass every day, your udders do not yield enough milk for our needs. Though you wear the form of a cow, I shall strike you down with my arrows, and with your flesh satisfy the hunger of my poor subjects.
The planet Earth began to tremble, and clasping his hands together, he said,
Seeds, roots, herbs, and cereals are now being used by non-devotees who are completely devoid of spiritual understanding. And as far as I am concerned, I am not being properly supported. By not punishing those rascals who have become thieves and use the grain for their own pleasure. If you want to alleviate the situation of the living entities by providing them with the grains they need, you should arrange for a suitable calf to be brought for that purpose, a pot to store the milk in, and someone to milk me.
In this way, King Prithu obtained herbs and cereals from Mother Earth to feed his people. Indra prevents the fire ceremony. King Prithu started the celebration of 100 fire ceremonies. Thanks to this, the rivers produced all kinds of flavors. The trees gave great fruits and honey in abundance. The cows produced a lot of milk, yogurt, and clarified butter. The oceans and seas were full of precious stones and pearls. And the mountains brimmed with chemical compounds and fertilizers. Indra, the Lord of Heaven, found intolerable the superhuman opulence that King Prithu enjoyed by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, when the king celebrated the 100th fire ceremony, Indra became invisible to everyone and stole the horse destined for the ceremony. When the son of King Prithu went into pursuit, he saw that the thief was dressed as a renunciate monk, with the hair gathered on his head and his body anointed with ashes. Confused by the situation, he decided not to attack, but being incited by Atri Muni, he returned to the chase and got the horse. Then Indra immediately created dense darkness in the ceremony area, covering the entire place, and took the horse away again. When Atri Muni informed the king's son, the latter, very angry, went into pursuit of Indra. But when he saw that the thief was dressed as a renunciate monk, carrying in his hand a staff topped with a skull, he again preferred not to kill him. When the great Atri Muni returned to instruct the king's son, he became very furious and armed his bow with an arrow ready to kill the thief. So Indra decided to let go of the horse. King Prithu immediately took up his bow and arrows and himself prepared to kill Indra for having introduced false religious principles from renounced monks. But the priests said to him,
"Oh, great soul, do not kill him. Indra is an integral part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Then the priests continued.
Indra's powers have already been diminished due to his attempt to prevent you from performing the ceremony. We will call him with some Vedic mantras that have not been used until now. And thus we will throw him into the fire because he is your enemy.
As the priests were about to begin, Lord Brahma appeared and said to King Prithu,
Stop this fire ceremony, for these rituals have led Indra to introduce irreligious practices. He even stole the sacrificial horse while disguised as a renunciant. You have appeared from the body of King Vena to protect religious principles. What was the point of continuing to hold fire ceremonies? You should refrain from performing any more sacrifices, establish a good government, and put things in order. Do not get agitated or feel anxious, because if they have not been conducted properly, it is due to the obstacles that Providence has put up. But we must not try to oppose them, because the more we get involved trying to counteract those setbacks, the more we sink into the dark regions of material anxiety. Both you and King Indra are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you should not be angry with Lord Indra, who is not different from you. But you, besides being the incarnation of God, are a great devotee.
Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, appeared on the spot with King Indra and said,
My dear King Prithu, Indra, the King of Heaven, has come with me to ask for your forgiveness. Please excuse him. If a personality like you, who has followed the instructions of the sages and is therefore very advanced, is dragged under the influence of my material energy, your entire advancement can be considered a mere waste of time. My dear heroic king, please always stay away from activities pertaining to the bodily situation and engage yourself in my devotional service to remain in the liberated state, in that transcendental position, and in any condition in which, by my design, you find yourself. Try to fulfill your duty as a king, because your only duty here is to protect the citizens of your kingdom. If you follow the teachings of the learned priests, all your subjects will be happy and will love you, and very soon you will be able to see already liberated personalities of the stature of the 4 Kumaras.
Lord Indra, who was present there, became ashamed of his own activities and prostrated himself before King Prithu to touch his lotus feet. The king was such a magnanimous devotee that he did not want Lord Indra to prostrate himself. On the contrary, he immediately hugged him and made him stand up, and thus both of them forgot the incident. They were devotees, servants of Lord Vishnu. They had a duty to solve their problems and remove the cause of their envy. The Lord was about to leave, but King Prithu, his eyes full of tears and his voice trembling, choking with emotion embraced him in his heart, stood with folded hands, and offered the following prayers.
Just as Father provides for his son's needs without waiting to be asked, please grant me what you know to be best for my life.
The Supreme Lord replied,
My dear King, may you always be blessed to engage in my devotional service. From now on, be very careful to carry out my orders, and do not let anything mislead you. Anyone who lives in this way will always find good fortune wherever he goes.
Then the Lord decided to leave. Episode 11. The King's Speech. The story of King Prithu. King Prithu, who carried out many glorious activities in ruling the world, was always magnanimous, and his fame spread throughout the universe. He was unrivaled as a king, and with his scepter he ruled the 7 islands that are on the surface of the globe. His orders were irrevocable, and no one could disobey them except for holy people. On one occasion, King Prithu began a great sacrifice, at which great sages, saintly kings, and demigods from the higher planetary systems assembled. The king stood up in the middle of the assembly. It seemed that the full moon had risen in the middle of the stars. He had a tall, strong body, his complexion fair, his arms wide and robust, and his eyes as bright as the rising sun. His nose was straight, his face very handsome, and his personality serious. Then the king spoke with a mighty voice.
O noble members of this assembly, may all good fortune be upon you. Hear now my prayer with heedful ears. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, I have been appointed king of this planet, and I carry the scepter to govern the citizens, protect them from all dangers, and engage them according to their roles within the social order. You must always keep the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your hearts, with full faith and without reservation. For in doing so, you ensure success in attaining the highest goal of life. It is only the Supreme Lord who can grant the true benedictions of religion, economic prosperity, sense enjoyment, liberation, or elevation to the heavenly planets. In this way, you will safeguard your own interests, and you will be merciful to your king, considering his well-being after death. Since the consequences of any action after death are shared by those who performed, ordered, or supported it, that is, if I ascend to the celestial planets, the citizens who supported my methods and collaborated with me will likewise attain the same result. Devotees are glorified for their inherent virtues, penance, knowledge, and wisdom, Endowed with these spiritual gifts, they surpass even royalty in true power. Thus, the princely order is advised not to flaunt material strength before this community, lest they incur offense. The Supreme Personality of Godhead attained the opulence of his spotless reputation by worshipping the feet of his devotees, and he is greatly pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and serve him. There is no higher fruitive activity in this world than service to the devotees, for such service can even bring pleasure to the demigods. Rather than performing fire sacrifices, it is better to offer food to the devotees, as this practice is more effective in achieving the desired result. To all of you, I ask for the blessing to wear the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees upon my crown until the end of my days. Whoever adorns their head with that sacred dust is swiftly liberated from all sinful reactions, and in due time acquires all auspicious qualities and attains all the opulence of the world. Therefore, I pray that the Supreme Lord and his associates be pleased with the devotees, with the cows, and with me.
O Father of the terrestrial globe, blessed are you. May you live a long life. For you have great devotion to the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Master of the entire universe.
While the citizens were addressing prayers to the very powerful King Prithu, the 4 Kumaras, who were as bright as the sun, came to the scene. The king bowed down before them, and once seated on the golden throne, they looked like fire burning on an altar. The king said,
I cannot fathom what kind of pious acts I must have performed to be granted so effortlessly the grace of your presence. When devotees are pleased with someone, even the most elusive things, both in this world and after death, can be attained. From the very moment of your birth, you have strictly upheld the vows of celibacy, and despite your profound advancement on the path of liberation, you remain as innocent as children.
The king asked,
Can any blessing change the fate of those trapped in sense gratification? And how can we swiftly reach the ultimate goal?
Sanat Kumara, the chief celibate, smiled with satisfaction and replied,
My dear king, you already have an inclination to glorify the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, naturally causing the desires of enjoyment to disappear from the bottom of the heart. The ultimate goal of human society in its pursuit of good should be bodily detachment from life and steady and increasing attachment to the Supreme Lord, for which it should accept a bona fide spiritual master, learn the methods of devotional service from him, and hear from his lips the transcendental message and glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The candidate for spiritual advancement must live alone in the community of devotees and be non-violent, not blaspheme against others, and must tolerate the duality of the material world. In this way, he can strengthen his conviction in devotional service, and it will be very easy for him to increase his attachment for the Lord. In human society, Constantly thinking of how to earn money for sense gratification destroys everyone's interests. The person who lacks knowledge and devotional service passes to the species of life of trees and stones.
The king said,
O great sage, in the past, Lord Vishnu showed me his causeless mercy by revealing that you would come to my home, and now you have come, fulfilling that divine promise. My father was slain by devotees. Therefore, it falls to me to rule the world as their servant. But what can I possibly offer them in return? I am ready to give my life, my wife, my children, my home, my possessions, my kingdom, my strength, my land, and above all, my treasure. You have rendered boundless service for our enlightenment, so how could we ever repay such a debt? I understand that you are satisfied only by your own acts of charity, which liberate souls from the clutches of illusion.
Back to Godhead. In the final stage of his life, King Prithu distributed all his opulence. Then, accompanied by his wife, he went to the forest to perform austerities. He strictly followed the regulations of retired life and underwent rigorous austerities. Over time, he only fed on the air he breathed. Archie, the king's wife, voluntarily accompanied her husband to the forest. She followed her husband in practicing the regulative principles to live as great sages. Due to the pleasures she derived from serving her husband, she did not feel the slightest difficulty. King Prithu engaged in devotional service, thereby growing his love and devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, becoming fixed and unwavering. Thus, he could perceive the presence of Lord Krishna in everyone's heart. In time, when he was going to give up his body, the king firmly fixed his mind on Krishna's lotus feet, and thus, fully situated on the transcendental platform, he gave up his material body. The wives of the demigods stood on top of the mountain and said,
All glories to Queen Archie. We witness that she has served her husband with her mind, words, and body. In the material world, every human being has a short life, but those who are engaged in devotional service return back to Godhead. There is nothing that these people cannot achieve.
When Queen Archie saw that her husband showed no signs of life, wailed for a moment and then raised a burning pyre on top of a promontory and placed her husband's body on it. Then she performed the necessary funeral rites, walked around the fire, and thinking of her husband's lotus feet, she entered the flames. When the ladies of the higher planets looked up, they could see that both of them were ascending to the spiritual planets in magnificent airplanes. The sages said,
"Anyone who listens to the narration of King Prithu can become great, increase his duration of life, gain promotion to the heavenly planets, and counteract the contaminations of this sinful age. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or listens to them himself or helps others hear them, will undoubtedly attain the kingdom of God."
Episode 12, A Materialistic Heart, the story of Daksha. In the past, the leaders of the universal creation performed a great fire ceremony where all the great sages and major demigods gathered. When Daksha entered the assembly, the luster of his body was as intense as the effulgence of the sun. All the participants stood up except for Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Daksha, seeing that Lord Shiva remained seated without offering him the slightest show of respect, became very furious and with red-hot eyes said,
"Shiva! My wedding, my daughter! You have admitted my superiority! Yet I never wished to bestow her upon you, not with those eyes of yours like those of a monkey, but I did so at Lord Brahma's request. You dwell in filthy places, roam naked like a madman, and never bathe. Truly you are the most insane and inauspicious of all beings. Therefore, I now curse you. You shall never again take part in such ceremonies."
With these words, Daksha withdrew. Nandishvara, one of Lord Shiva's foremost followers, became enraged and prepared to curse Daksha and all the priests, saying,
"Anyone who supported Daksha will be deprived of transcendental knowledge and will remain in the continuous cycle of births and deaths, begging from door to door in an attempt to satisfy the body. Daksha believes that the body is the only reality, and the only thing that matters to him is sexual life. That is why he will soon have the head of a goat."
A priest reacted with a powerful curse.
"Whoever takes a vow to satisfy Shiva will turn away from true faith and deviate from the sacred teachings of the scriptures, for they tend to indulge in wine, meat, and similar things."
With this unnecessary exchange of curses and lack of interest in the spiritual life, Lord Shiva became very sad. Without saying anything, he left the place. After some time, Daksha performed a fire ceremony where he invited many important people, but Shiva was no longer included. However, Daksha's daughter Sati, who was Shiva's wife, wanted to participate to meet her relatives, and due to her nature as a woman, she liked to go to social gatherings where people used to show off their best clothes. Sati told Shiva,
My father, King Daksha, is organizing great ceremonies, and all the demigods invited by him are going there. If you wish, we can go. And I want to see my sisters and relatives. Maybe you think I shouldn't go because I haven't been invited, but there's nothing wrong with visiting a friend's house.
Shiva remembered Daksha's hurtful words and replied,
Consider that you should not visit the house of someone who will frown at you when he sees you, and who harbors bad thoughts toward you. But if you still wish to disobey me and leave, when you arrive at the ceremony, your father will not even honor you, because you are my wife. The offense caused by a family member, even when one is not at fault, is like an arrow to the heart. It brings suffering day and night, and can cause death instantly.
Sati, being indecisive, began to walk from one side to another, panting with anger and grief. Then, disobeying her husband, went to her father's house. When she arrived, no one gave her a good welcome because everyone present feared her father. Daksha did not speak to her, did not welcome her, and furthermore, he was insulting Shiva in the fire ceremony. Sati became very angry, and she looked at her father with such anger that she seemed to be burning him with her eyes and said,
Lord Shiva is the dearest of all living entities. Only you envy him and commit offenses. Therefore, I will no longer carry this unworthy body that I have received from you. For this reason, I will abandon it.
Sati, sitting and absorbed in the process of mystic yoga, meditating on the lotus feet of her husband, abandoned her body enveloped in a burning fire. Actually, Sati did what she could to smooth things over between her father and her husband. However, Daksha, driven by excessive attachment to the progress of material life, had a hard heart and was blind to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, reaching the point of allowing his daughter's death. Sati's death reached the ears of Shiva, who became enraged and created a terrible black warrior. And told him,
Kill Daksha and his soldiers at the place where the fire ceremony is taking place.
That warrior was tall as the sky, with terrifying teeth, and whose hairs looked like flames of fire set out together with an army. Destroying the ceremony and throwing an incessant rain of stones, the demigods ran in different directions, fearing for their lives. The mighty warrior, taking revenge, ripped out the mustache, eyebrows, eyes, and teeth of different priests who approved Daksha's curse on Shiva, and finally broke Daksha's teeth. Cut his neck, and threw his head into the fire as oblation. And set fire to the entire ceremony venue. Shiva forgives the demigods. After the punishment the priests and other personalities received, very fearful, they addressed Brahma, and Brahma replied.
Daksha wanted to enjoy the results of his fruitive activities. But such enjoyment is impossible when a great personality like Lord Shiva is offended. For Daksha, it was good to have died in the fight, for if he had lived, he would not have stopped committing offenses again and again against great personalities. The best thing is that you go to Shiva and ask for his forgiveness. I am sure that he will feel very pleased.
Brahma brought all the demigods to Lord Shiva's abode, and they found him under a banyan tree, surrounded by saintly persons, and speaking about the absolute truth. Shiva, seeing Brahma, stood up and offered obeisances. Then smiling Brahma said,
"My dear Lord, please restore Daksha to life and allow the fire ceremony to be completed."
Lord Shiva, being satisfied, replied,
My dear father, Brahma, these demigods are childish and unintelligent. Therefore I do not pay attention to their offenses, and have punished them only to correct them. Daksha's head has been burned to ashes. Therefore, he will receive the head of a goat.
The demigods invited Shiva to the place where the fire ceremony was being performed, and carefully attached Daksha's body to the sacrificial goat's head. And he immediately regained consciousness. And when he saw Shiva, his heart, polluted by the envy he felt against him, was purified. King Daksha wanted to offer prayers to Lord Shiva, but with the memory of the unfortunate death of his daughter, Sati, his eyes filled with tears, his voice choked with sorrow, and he could say nothing, but with great effort offered the following prayers.
My dear Lord Shiva, I have committed a grave offense. Yet you have shown me mercy by punishing me. For you are the protector of the priests.
Daksha again undertook the fire ceremony, and as soon as he uttered the mantras, Lord Vishnu appeared in his original form of Narayan, illuminating all directions. His color was blackish. His clothes were yellow like gold, and his helmet resplendent like the sun. His 8 hands jeweled with gold bracelets and bangles. His face was adorned with a beautiful smile, capable of captivating the entire world, and especially the devotees. Lord Vishnu said,
I am the original personality of Godhead, but in order to create, maintain, and annihilate the cosmic manifestation, I act through my material energy. Shiva is one of my representatives. Therefore, you should not disrespect him.
Episode 13. The Real Father. The story of Daksha. Daksha was giving a goat's head for his attachment to sense gratification. Then he was reborn as a son of the Prashetas. In that birth, he had the same name, Daksha, and the same occupation as in his previous life, increasing the number of species of demigods, demons, human beings, birds, and mammals. Daksha made all his efforts to increase the population, but he did not see the desired results. So, he decided to retire to a holy place to engage in great austerities to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After many penances, Daksha offered prayers to the Lord, ending with the following words.
One may conceive of you as personal, impersonal, or even imaginary. But my intention in praying to you is that your Lordship may fulfill my desire to see you as you truly are.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead was very pleased and appeared in that holy place with his lotus feet resting on Garuda's shoulders. The Lord had the form of 8 arms, long, powerful, and very beautiful. A long garland of flowers descended from his neck to his feet. He wore a golden belt, bracelets on his arms, rings on his fingers, and ankle bells on his feet. Daksha offered his obeisances to the Supreme Lord. All his senses were filled with pleasure, and he could not say anything. He just lay on the ground. But the Lord, who knows everyone's heart, said as follows.
You desire to benefit all living entities, and that is also my desire. For that reason, I am very pleased with you. All the demigods and you are working to increase the population. So, I offer you the daughter of a great sage. She is very fertile, and you can have as many children as you are able to father.
The Real Father. Daksha had 10,000 sons who were very kind and obedient, full of good qualities. Considering that, before entering family life, they must first train in spiritual knowledge, Daksha sent them west to perform austerities in a holy place. Then they bathed in its waters and underwent penance. One day, the great Narada Muni saw those boys engaged in intense practice of austerities and told them,
Since time immemorial, the living entity has been engaged in fruitive activities, going from place to place like a monkey in the material world. Frustrated It follows the impulses of its intelligence, and without realizing it, falls into the river of material nature. All the scriptures, which are the true Father, tell us that we must put an end to the materialistic way of life. Any instructions contrary to that are not from the true Father. What is the benefit of engaging in worldly actions? If one focuses on spiritual enlightenment, one can attain the kingdom of God, that eternal realm from which once reached, no one returns.
The children of Daksha, hearing Narada Muni's instructions, became firmly established, took the order of life of renunciation, and disobeyed their father's order, which was to marry and have children. Daksha, receiving the news from Narada Muni himself, began to mourn for losing his highly qualified sons. However, in his desire to continue increasing the population, he had 1,000 more sons and ordered them to go to the same sacred place where his brothers had reached perfection. Narada Muni saw that Daksha's sons were highly qualified, and out of compassion, he addressed them with enigmatic words, as he had done with the other brothers, and also added,
"A brother who is aware of the principles of religion follows in the footsteps of his elder brothers. Moreover, you all have great affection for them."
Thus, Daksha's sons followed Narada Muni's instructions and engaged in Krishna consciousness, neglecting their father's orders. Daksha began to see bad omens and learned that his children had left this world to engage in devotional service. He became very angry, and with his lip trembling in anger, he said,
"Oh, Narada Muni, you are the very personification of sin! Though you don the robes of a holy man, you are no true saint. Indeed, I am the genuine saint. People should be allowed to enjoy the material world while simultaneously cultivating knowledge. In doing so, they will inevitably taste the suffering that material happiness brings. Then, without any external persuasion, they will come to see that material enjoyment is abhorrent. Those who change their minds under another's influence are not as truly renounced as those who reach that realization through personal experience. Once you caused me to lose my children, and now you repeat your nefarious deeds. Therefore, you are a scoundrel who knows not how to treat others. You may travel all over the universe, but I curse you to have no residence anywhere."
Narada Muni replied,
"Yes, what you said is fine. I accept the curse."
Narada Muni should have left immediately, but he preferred to stay and listen to all of Daksha's insults, so that Daksha would vent his anger, and thus he would come to his senses and realize that he had made a mistake. Daksha, in order to continue his mission of populating the universe, had 60 daughters who were offered in charity to glorious personalities, where the various species of living entities that populate the universe were born, such as human beings, demigods, demons, mammals, birds, and snakes. Episode 14, The King of the Universe, the story of King Priyavrata. Swayambhuva Manu had a son named Priyavrata, who engaged in the practice of austerities from the very beginning of his life, and accepted Narada Muni as his spiritual master, thus attaining the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. One day, Priyavrata's father came looking for him and said,
"My dear son, at the moment there is no qualified person to rule the entire universe. So I ask you to take charge of it."
But Priyavrata did not willingly receive the order of his father. Carefully weighing the circumstances, he inquired,
I want to know if by assuming such a responsibility I might be deprived of devotional service.
Upon Priyavrata's refusal, the Supreme Powerful Lord Brahma emerged from his own abode in the upper planetary system and descended on his bearer, the great swan. He approached Prince Priyavrata and, looking at him with a smile, said,
All great personalities, although they are authorities, cannot disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For they never do anything without His permission. You should only allow yourself to be guided by the Supreme Lord. Take shelter of His lotus feet, thereby conquer your senses, and being on a transcendental plane, accept material enjoyment, since the Lord, as something extraordinary, has ordered you to do so.
Then Priyavrata immediately said,
Yes, sir. I will carry out your order, and I accept the governmental responsibility to maintain and protect all planetary systems in the universe.
King Priyavrata married, loved his good wife very much, and benefited from the relationship with her, who was always very adept at pleasing her great husband by dressing appropriately and enhancing the feminine features of her body in walking, in the way she got up, smiled, and looked at him. The queen was a source of inspiration for the king, and thus he was able to fulfill his duties in government with great success. Every time his mighty arms drew his bow with great determination to fix an arrow on it, all who opposed the regulative principles of religious life fled from his presence in fear, for he manifested an incomparable power in the governance of the universe. On one occasion, he became displeased with the orbit followed by the very powerful sun god, and therefore decided to bring daylight. to the part of the universe where there was night. To do this, he followed the path of the sun, mounted on a brilliant chariot, the rims of his wheels forming grooves that later became 7 oceans, and divided the Burloka planetary system into 7 islands. Except for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one could do it. But King Priyavrata did it because of the power he had attained by worshipping the Supreme Lord. To put an end to the discord between the people, he drew borders that followed the course of the rivers and the limits marked by the mountains and forests in order to prevent anyone from invading the properties of others. One day he stopped to consider that although he had fully surrendered to the great sage Narada, he had become entangled in material activities again and said,
I have had enough. I will enjoy no longer. I am but a dancing monkey in the hands of my wife.
Then he divided all his earthly possessions among his obedient sons and left everything. His purified heart became a place for the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he again attained the position he had attained by the grace of the great sage Narada Muni. Episode 15. The Supreme Human Being. The story of Lord Risabhadeva. The grandson of King Priyavrata was named Navi, who engaged in devotional service with great attention. And under the guidance of great priests, he performed a fire ceremony to have the Supreme Lord as his son. In the middle of the ceremony, the Supreme Personality of Godhead unexpectedly manifested himself in front of everyone. Lord Vishnu was very bright. He wore a yellow silk garment on his lower body. On his chest, he had the mark of Srivasta and a necklace of wild flowers. In his hands, he carried the conch shell, the lotus flower, the disc, and the club. The priest said,
My dear Lord, we offer you our respectful obeisances, as your personal presence is very rare, even among great sages. You are pleased when your devotees offer you prayers with broken voices, and full of ecstasy, they bring you tulasi leaves, water, and flowers. However, in this ceremony we have offered many articles of worship, but we know that you do not need all these formalities. We are the ones who need them in order to receive your blessings. Lord, it is possible that at the time of death, due to illness, we may not be able to remember your holy name, your form, and your qualities. Therefore, we ask that when we are on our deathbeds, you help us remember you, and thus free us from sinful life. Dear Lord, you can offer elevation to the spiritual planets. However, the great King Nabi wishes to be blessed to have a son like you, which is another form of sense gratification, and we have not properly worshipped you.
the Supreme Personality of Godhead replied,
"You have performed this ceremony, requesting that I be born as the son of King Nabi. But I must tell you that this is not possible, since I am one and without equal. However, I must consider that for me, the priests endowed with divine qualities are like my own mouth, and their words are never false. For this reason, I will expand into a plenary portion and descend into the womb of the king's wife."
The Lord, at the very moment he was born as the son of the king, manifested all the sign of divinity. Power, strength, beauty, renown, fame, influence, and enthusiasm. When the king saw all these qualities, he thought that his son was either the best of human beings or the supreme being, and therefore he gave him the name Risabha, the supreme living being. Influenced by transcendental illusion, the king regarded the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his own son and raised him with great affection, joy, and devotion. Risabhadeva was very popular among the citizens, governments, officials, and ministers, so the king elevated him to the throne as world emperor to protect the people by following the Vedic religious system. The king Navi and his wife left for Badarika's Ram in the Himalayas. There, he performed austerities and penances very expertly, and being absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he achieved success at the end of his life and rose to the spiritual world. Lord Risabhadeva, to give an example of the duties of a householder, first accepted the vows of a celibate monk under the guidance of spiritual masters. After completing his education, he gave offerings to his teachers and later married. With his wife, he fathered 100 sons who were as powerful and capable as himself. He governed for many years and decided to renounce family life. But before doing so, he instructed his children on how they should govern their lives from the transcendental plane and said,
"My dear children, those who have received this human form of life should not toil day and night merely for sense gratification. One who cannot deliver his subordinates from the cycle of birth and death should never become a spiritual master, father, husband, mother, or even a worshipable demigod. You must discover the true spiritual values of life by accepting a bona fide spiritual master and undergoing austerities to attain devotional service. In this way, you can place your faith and love in me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The form of my transcendental body is identical to the human form. My heart is also spiritual, and within it resides the process of devotional service. That is why I always think of the welfare of my devotees. One who offers me food with faith and love through the mouth of a qualified devotee, I eat with full satisfaction. In truth, such food gives me more pleasure than the offerings made in fire ceremonies.
Lord Risabhadeva gave these instructions simply to set an example of how a father should instruct his children before retiring from family life. Later, he installed his eldest son, Bharata, on the royal throne. And then Lord Risabhadeva began to travel all over the world, indifferent to material concerns. Episode 16, The Fall of a Saint, the story of King Bharata. Lord Risabhadeva put Bharata, the foremost of his sons, on the royal throne. King Bharata was wise, experienced, and affectionate towards his subject. His destiny dictated that he enjoyed material opulence for 1,000 times 10,000 years. And after that period was over, he divided his wealth among his sons and withdrew from family life. The king went to Pulashram, the place where the Salagramshilas are found. In those gardens, he got food that he offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And with the passage of time, all his material desires disappeared. And naturally, his love for Krishna increased, making him feel that his heart was like a lake full of ecstatic love. One day, while the king was meditating on the banks of a river, very thirsty deer went there to drink with great satisfaction. But suddenly, a lion let out a loud roar, causing the deer to run scared to the other shore. But the fawn that was crying in his belly fell into the current of the river. After aborting, the deer collapsed in the cave and died. King Bharata, seeing the orphan fawn, felt great compassion and took it to his hut. Little by little, he became fond of the deer. He caressed it, kissed it, took it for a walk, bathed it, and protected it and blessed it, saying,
"My dear fawn, may you be happy in all aspects."
When the king was meditating, he was actually thinking of his deer. And when the animal pricked him with the tip of its horns, he felt great pleasure. If ever the king did not see the deer, he would say,
"Perhaps it was eaten by a wolf. When will he return? Truly, I believe that the results of my pious deeds have been exhausted, for I feel as if I have separated from my own son."
In a few days, the king had completely forgotten everything related to his spiritual advancement and said,
Although it disturbs my spiritual life, I realize that I cannot reject someone who is helpless.
At the moment of dying, the king saw that the deer lay down beside him as if it were his own son lamenting his death. In fact, the king's mind was absorbed in the deer's body. And therefore, like people who are not Krishna conscious, he got a deer's body. Thus, King Bharata was punished for falling victim to sense gratification. The pious deer. In his next life, King Bharata obtained the body of a deer, but due to the strict devotional service practices in his previous life, he understood the cause of his misbirth and kept repenting, saying,
I gave up everything I had, took shelter in the forest, and managed to be absorbed in devotional service. However, out of foolishness, I became attached to a deer and fell very low.
As a deer, his desire for devotional service was very intense. So he left his home and returned to the forest where he was in his past life, lived in the hut of great sages, ate dry leaves, and bathed in that sacred place. Finally, with the passage of time, he left that body. Deaf, blind, and dumb. In the next life, Bharata was born into a family of priests of great purity and received the name of Jada Bharata. Because he enjoyed the special mercy of the Lord, he could remember what he had done in his previous life, and he was in great fear of his non-devotee relatives and friends. For that reason, he appeared in people's eyes as a madman, fool, blind, and deaf, so that no one would try to speak to him, while in his heart he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord. His father was fully endowed with divine qualities and taught him the principles of cleanliness, study of the Vedas, regulative methods, and fire ceremonies. But Jada Bharata behaved like a fool before him. Since he had been putting the regulative principles into practice for several lifetimes, he had lost all interest in following him. With the passage of time, his father died, and Jada Bharata passed into the care of his brothers, who were experts in rituals and ceremonies for the enjoyment of his senses. But they did not care about his education because they considered him a fool and without a brain. Jada Bharata never covered his body against the inclemencies of nature because he was as strong as a bull. He never bathed, and he wore a blackened sacred thread. The men called him crazy, insulted him, and mistreated him. However, he never protested. His brothers engaged him in agricultural activities and fed him burnt rice, grain husks, and seed residues. But Bharata ate it happily, as if it were nectar, and without holding the slightest grudge. A ruffian set out to worship the goddess Bhadrakali in order to have a son, and for this reason, he was going to offer her a mentally retarded man as a sacrifice. One night, they searched for someone with those characteristics and came to the paddy field that Bharata tended. The ruffians considered that he was perfect for the offering, so they tied him up and took him to the temple of the goddess Kali. Bharata did not resist, as he relied on the protection of the Lord. There, they bathed him, dressed him in new clothes, put flower garlands on him, and fed him sumptuously. Then Bharata was seated before the deity, and one of the men took the sword to cut his throat. But the goddess Kali realized that they were about to kill a great devotee of the Supreme Lord, and without tolerating the event, the body of the deity was torn to pieces. And from within emerged the goddess Kali herself. She violently jumped out and quickly beheaded all the ruffians with the same sword that was going to kill Bharata. Then the goddess Kali began to drink the hot blood that flowed from the decapitated necks as if it were alcohol. Meeting with King Raugana. King Raugana was on a trip, and the chief of the porters who carried the palanquin saw that he needed another man, and going out to look for him, he found Bharata by chance, and seeing him fit to carry things like donkeys and cows, he forced him to load the palanquin. Bharata, due to his non-violent attitude, carried the palanquin very regularly. Before taking a step, he made sure there were no ants in front of him, as he did not want to step on any living thing. Consequently, he could not keep up with the other porters. As the palanquin jerked, King Raugana immediately asked the bearers,
What is happening here? You had better carry the palanquin properly.
But the porters replied,
This man who has recently joined us cannot walk quickly.
And the king told Bharata sarcastically,
I see you are old and not strong. Are your companions not helping you?
However, Bharata did not feel identified with the body, as he had attained the spiritual identity of it, so he continued to carry the palanquin as before. But the king became irritated.
What are you doing? Don't you know that I am your master? For disobeying me, I will punish you as severely as a superintendent of death.
Bharata, smiling, said the following.
My dear king, I am not the one who carries the palanquin. The one who carries it is the body. If I had something to do with this trip,
I would go through many difficulties. But since they have nothing to do with me but with my body, they do not bother me at all, since I am a spirit soul. You think you are the king and I the servant. But I will tell you that these differences are temporary, because in the future you could be the servant and I the master. Although I live like a fool, I am actually a self-realized person. What will you gain by punishing me? The folly of madness is not remedied with punishment.
The king had great faith in matters related to the absolute truth. He immediately got down from his palanquin and bowed down himself on the ground.
Oh, great devotee, who are you? Why have you come to this place? I am not afraid of Indra's thunderbolt or Shiva's trident, but I am afraid of offending a devotee. I am very attached to family life and worldly activities. Please instruct me.
After hearing the king's words, Bharata forgot the offense and decided to show him mercy by instructing him. The king, after receiving the lessons, said,
For a single moment of associating with the great soul, I have attained the platform of pure devotional service, which is not accessible to great demigods.
Bharata kept wandering on the surface of the earth, and due to his glorious activities, the demigods called this planet by the name of Bharatavarsha, the land of Bharata.